All right, we're ready.
Cool, thank you. So what if Petraeus was a hacker? Let's talk about email privacy for the rest of us. I'm Fak3r, better known online as Fak3r, open source technologist, InfoSec researcher, and sometimes speaker, and privacy advocate. And one thing, I have plenty of time for this presentation, so if you have any questions or comments, feel free to interrupt me, it's okay. So let's talk about mail. In the US, there's really no, in the US, it's a violation of federal law to open anybody else's mail. And also the privacy of correspondence in other countries is also protected. And then controlling people's mail is a civil rights issue. Now, of course, there's been times where governments are actually opening mail. Sometimes it's for criminal conspiracy, but sometimes they just do it extra legally. So what about email? Well, a recent interview with Woz get some good comments. Mentions that back in the day when computers weren't connected, you have to actually, mail a letter. And when you did that, you had, legal guarantees. And now we don't have those guarantees with email. So everything we send as email is just publicly viewable and totally open. And in the beginning, they thought that the internet was going to kind of raise everybody up, raise the average person up to be equal to the tyrants or big governments controlling. He thinks that Microsoft and Apple really missed an opportunity when they were building their web clients that are email clients that they didn't include PGP. If they would have done that, emails would have been encrypted and obviously more private. So what about the laws? So in the States, there's really no constitutional guarantee on email privacy. You've got the secrecy of correspondence, which is from the Fourth Amendment, but it's limited with the reasonable expectation of privacy, which can be subjective. Email is protected by the Electronic Communications Privacy Act from 1986. That's been criticized. There's an agency doesn't need judicial review to get consumer data from service providers. And to top it off, after 6 months, those email messages are not protected communications anymore, and they just become like a regular database record. And that means that they only need a subpoena to be able to get a hold of your information. Of course, we know email providers who scan email to present you with different ads. If you're at work and send email, of course, that email could be property of the company. And then government interests sometimes are screening things in the perceived interest of national security. Now, other countries, they have better privacy protection laws concerning email. Some are even in the Constitution. So, the Petraeus incident. So what happened there? So you had David. He was working at the CIA, working with biographer Paula. She was writing a book about him and his work in Afghanistan leading our troops. Now, they were both married to different people, but they started a relationship that was not appropriate, and that included messages back and forth. Jill comes along. Jill's friends with David and his wife. Start shooting him some emails. Paula doesn't like this. She thinks Jill's a threat, so she starts hammering her with threatening emails. And Jill's just not going to put up with that. She got the FBI involved, and everything pretty much fell apart after that. So David's called to the White House. He goes there and promptly resigns. Now we can look at how Petraeus was caught. Again, they used like a shared Gmail account, but instead of sending emails, they just went in and left messages in the drafts folder. From this, FBI was able to get subpoenas for IP logs, and they were able to connect the anonymous Gmail account with Paula. From there, they had other things like guest records, tracking Wi-Fi networks, and then made sure that all matched her travel history. None of this required a judicial approval or a Fourth Amendment search warrant. So things like that, guest records from hotels, IP logs, these are all forms of information that the government can get without a subpoena. And they also list information about other accounts that have logged in from this IP. Again, the target of the subpoena generally won't know that they've been targeted unless there's criminal charges at a later point. Now, if the FBI went after this as a counterintelligence investigation instead of the cyber stalking, they could have had pretty much all that stuff even without a subpoena. Got national security letters, secret tools, and basically it just needs to require a say-so of an FBI field office chief. Mark Rothenberg with Epic says that it's not unusual for things like this to happen. The chain of all this disclosures in computer-centric cases, just because it comes open-ended because there's so much detail out there. And that's exactly what happened to Petraeus. He wasn't really the focus, but they found out about him because of just him being related to it. So whistleblower Edward Snowden, he brought us PRISM. And PRISM basically showed us how the big internet companies had some visibility from the NSA as far as getting data about their users. We also learned that their graphic design skills are really terrible. Snowden said that to become a target by the NSA, you could be picked just because of your email or Facebook profile. And in that case, an analyst will get updates about what happened, what changed on the system that day, and it even includes PCAPs, packet captures, from the user's system. So the target's machine really just belongs to the government at that point. He also points out that the NSA wants to have it so where they can store at least all the metadata. And in a lot of cases, the metadata is going to be more important than the content because it allows you to point to the content you need, and you can always go refetch it once you have the metadata to guide you to it. Yesterday we learned about X key store. So generally it's a system they use that allows them to put all the data together, index it, and then a front end to actually search it. And they'll keep things like email addresses, name, phone number, browser language. In 2012, they had 1 month of collecting data, and they got 41 billion individual records over 30 days. And it actually contained email, text in the database. But it was just such a high volume of stuff, they couldn't keep it all. So they only stored most of it for 3 days. The metadata they could store for longer, for 30 days. But if something was really interesting, they could pull it aside, transfer it to another database, and store it for up to 5 years. He also points out that there's the Five Eyes, UK, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and they go far beyond what the NSA does. We already know that the British spy agency taps into fiber optic cables, and they grab everything. And supposedly there's a rolling buffer, so they just don't miss a bit, just keeps going. Bruce Schneider points out that NSA collected emails and data on activity of Americans and foreigners, and that the NSA collected it under certain legal pretense, but then when that went away, they searched around and got another pretense. Meanwhile, web providers really leave the door open for this kind of surveillance. You log into webmail, you have HTTPS, so you're secure. But that's only good, from your connection to the servers. It doesn't mean anything once your email leaves that server. There's a study looking at different servers and how they used, if they used TLS for the SMTP transfer. Google was actually the best one. So the point is, people don't think about that. So the risks of the server-to-server unencrypted email is just a big deal. And it also kind of lends credence to the idea that maybe these companies, the big internet companies, are kind of telling the truth. Maybe they're not working with the NSA as much or more than they're legally required to. You know, maybe the government doesn't care because they can just grab it as it comes over the line unencrypted. Just worth mentioning that Obama let this go on for 2 years during his administration. And of course, this was all started up by Bush in 2001. But they're still going to go after Snowden. So good luck. And now for the NSA. Now for their part, there's been a number of different revelations before, leaks, that they collected metadata on Americans. Bill Binney brought it up once, and a recent report by the Inspector General actually confirmed some of the things Binney actually brought ahead. And again, it was bulk emails of US persons. So they were to analyze metadata with the United States persons or people that they believe to be in the United States. So all the stuff when they said, well, we're targeting people that's very selected and not including Americans, might be a little less than truthful. And again, it's just the metadata argument, but metadata can tell you a lot. You know, who was the email from, or to, IP access, which can give up their location. MIT Media Lab has a program called a merger. You can log in, you give it access to your Gmail, and what it does is it goes through and grabs all the Gmail metadata, and then it makes a visualization about it. Shows all sorts of different connections. And it's amazing the way it does it. You'll just end up with like groups of people, and you'll say, hey, I work with all these people, or hey, there's my relatives. And then there are connections that you just wouldn't have thought about, like why is this person connected to this person? But you can click on it and figure out why. So they go on to explain that metadata is just such an emotional issue because it deals with people's interactions with other people. Now, also interesting, if your data is encrypted, the NSA might want to look at that a little closer. So the point is, they can keep SSL encrypted or encrypted data because they assume it has some sort of secret meaning. So the default by NSA is if they're not sure about anything, they can just keep it. Later, if they find anything potentially criminal, they can use that, even if that's not why they originally collected it. So the default is that your communications are unprotected, which is the opposite of how it's supposed to be in the Constitution. So the NSA's website, some senators were complaining about some of the bullet points, basically mentioning that NSA is protecting Americans' privacy and all this stuff. So they wanted them to make some changes on it. And instead, the NSA just pulled the page. So we don't really know all the details of what were on that page that the senators thought were so misleading because a lot of it's classified. But you're able to go to archive.org and find some of it. And the second bullet point is really the one, the government cannot target any U.S. persons anywhere in the world under this authority, nor target a person outside of the USA. So it seems pretty cut and dry there. But with each new disclosure, it becomes clear that the government's been doing this and concealing this for a while and targeting innocent Americans. So it's thanks to whistleblowers like Thomas Drake, William Binney, and Kirk Reedy, as well as Snowden, that the public can actually have this conversation and debate now. I think that's kind of what should have happened after 9/11. These three whistleblowers got together and had a talk a few weeks ago, and it's on USA Today for some reason, but it's really interesting. It's worth your time. And we really should be having this conversation because we're paying for it in multiple ways. Now, the NSA is building a new data center in Utah. This is a really big project. At the ribbon cutting, the main point they were trying to get across was that it would be 100% committed to protecting the civil liberties and privacy rights of the American people. This was a couple of months before Snowden, so it's probably an easier sell. over 1 million square feet, price tag over $1 billion. It's assumed to take up over $40 million worth of power. And again, Keith Alexander said that it was to strengthen and protect the nation's cyber security. And the facility has its own private police force, and of course, generators to get going for another 3 days if they ever need that. Suppliers say it's going to be probably the most sophisticated supercomputer and maybe the largest collection of data on the planet. They think that it might hold as many as 1.25 million 4 terabyte drives, which comes out to about 5 zettabytes. And 5 zettabytes equal over 1 trillion gigabytes. Going to be running some Cray computers and the XC330, which is partially funded by DARPA to develop it. They're hoping to get speeds of 100 petaflops, which is 1,000 trillion calculations a second, or 3 times faster than the world's current fastest computer. Now, Bruce Schneider had a comment also. And he brings up, well, these are just rough estimates, and this really shouldn't be the focus. The focus should be that the government is on a secrecy binge. I did some research, came up with this. This shows the number of documents classified each year. So you see 2010, it's quite a lot more. And I just remember being excited about Obama with the promises of a more transparent government. So looking at the numbers now, they're classifying 5 times more of the documents than not classified. Bruce says that they regularly classify things not because they need to be secret, but because it'd be embarrassing to the government, and that the government's putting their own self-interest ahead of ours. So I think privacy and anonymity is a right. So if you want to shield yourself, if you're standing up for something you believe in, or if you just don't want to share, if you just want to be private. And the EFF came out to say that right to immunity and protections it affords are critical for internet, and also the free exchange of ideas on the internet is driven largely in part by the ability of users to actually communicate anonymously. And the Supreme Court has continuously repeated that the right to anonymous free speech is protected by the First Amendment, and that it's a shield from the tyranny of the majority. And again, points out the reasons for the Bill of Rights and the First Amendment. So, proposed ideas and tools. So with all this going on, of course, we're seeing more focus on some privacy tools, encryption, of course, and making it more easy for the user to use. Something as simple as like crypto chat, encrypted IM communications, to something big like Silent Circle. And Silent Circle sells it as global encrypted communications, but they might have something. They're run by Phil Zimmerman, who is the creator of PGP, Pretty Good Privacy. And they have a suite of projects, encrypted email, encrypted video chat, encrypted phone calls, and text messaging. Start Mail is coming up pretty soon, and they're advertising as the world's most private email. And they might have a shot too because it's run by IXQuick, which is a really private search engine. Yeah, and they want an alternative to data collecting services like Gmail and Yahoo, and a suite of completely open web products. And they mentioned that the culture of the freeze is to have devastating effects on our privacy, but also our economy. So the question will come down to if people actually want to pay for email, since they're used to getting it for free for so long. But they need to realize it's a matter of paying with your wallet or with your data. The founder of the Pirate Bay wants to have NSA-proof Messenger app as well. He mentions that in this day and age, we can't do without encryption. But he takes it beyond that. He says it's important to look at who runs the infrastructure, how do you know their intentions, and also what kind of rules their jurisdiction has as far as what they have to do. And also Kim.com from Mega wants to have spy-proof messaging. So he wants to start with messaging and then privacy within his apps, but also encrypted mail servers for everybody. Recently, AT&T applied for a patent to do self-destructing email. So they point out that conventional email is not right for sending private info. But this app has a client and application side that would, destroy the email on the recipient's computer, regardless if they've read it or not, depending how you have it set. So I don't know how that would work. But there's privacy-focused organizations. RiseUp's a really good one. They provide online communication tools for people that are trying to affect social change. And they think by controlling their own secure means of communication going forward is really the way. I found another group, this one out of Italy, with similar goals. They want people to choose free rather than commercial communications. And they want to get people's awareness that they need to protect their privacy and escape the looting that's going on with their data now. Really good overview website called Prison Break. Has all sorts of tools you can use online for encrypted communications or just other more private ways of communicating. There's purpose-built privacy tools. So the New Yorker is using Strongbox. Strongbox is a more secure, private way for sources to get data to the publishers. You can only connect through the Tor network, and they don't collect any information on the user's browser or anything. Now, Strongbox is based on Deadrop. And Deadrop was the last project of Aaron Schwartz. And so how it works is the sources get in a code name, and they're able to use that to have a relationship between them and their code name and themselves, again, without tracing it back to a name or an email. This way they can have a two-way conversation with the journalist. They can actually post questions and receive email back, basically by going in and checking that code name for messages. Of course, online there's tons of resources for improvement. Snowden points out that encryption works, and it's one of the few things that we can really rely on. Sites like EFF, their surveillance self-defense site, walks you through what's going on online and better ways you can protect yourself. Just a few months ago, Freedom of the Press Foundation had an article on how to protect your privacy in the age of NSA surveillance, and it's quite extensive. Again, lots of tools, just lots of ideas so you know what's going on when you're online. RiseUp has a really good primer talking about concepts and different things you need to think about. And then this one's fun, this is Crypto Party. People are having crypto parties around the world. Basically, they get together informally and just teach each other how to use crypto, Tor, off-the-record messaging. The crypto party was started by Asher Wolf, who, if you don't follow on Twitter, she's just got tons of information. And there's an article at NSA Proof Your Email. It's pretty interesting, but it's basically walking you through setting up and running a Linux mail server, but with information how to have everything encrypted and secure as you go along. So, but I think the main email considerations are you need to think about the connection between you and your email service, so HTTPS, and then like we talked about earlier, service of the connections between you and the email service and other email services. If you want to secure the content of your mail, of course, you can use PGP. Enigma is a plugin for Thunderbird that allows you to use PGP very easily. And then the storage of your email, disk encryption or offshore hosting. So let's talk about that, shipping your email offshore. In European countries, Asia, elsewhere, generally offer a lot stronger email privacy. Some have constitutional guarantee secrecy of correspondence. That's really cool because it equates email with letters. So that not only protects the content, but also the metadata, logs of where and when this was sent from. Again, there's constitutional guarantees, European Convention of Human Rights. And I like this last one, the right to respect for private and family life. Now, offshore email accounts aren't going to be free. The fees are pretty reasonable. Again, you're not paying for it with your private data. one of the companies had this ad, which I thought was pretty apt. So I found a bunch of different companies I wanted to look at and check out their offerings for more private email. Narrowed it down to 4 that I really wanted to focus on. Now they all kind of have the similar, these things are similar across all of them. You know, the personal data collected has to come from the consent of the user, and if they're going to use that for something else, they need to get consent for that. Personal data can't be stored longer than required and must be confidential. Of course, they don't sell or pass on any information unless required by law. And they all feature some version of OpenPGP encryption and digital signatures. So Shinjuru is the first one I looked at. And they're basically Hushmail's official partner in Malaysia. So Hushmail is a really pretty popular private email, but it's located in the US, so they have to give up, well, they have given up stuff in the past. If it's in Malaysia, it's going to be a different story. So they use the Hushmail encryption toolkit and have other tools like the Hushmail Messenger for instant secure instant messaging chat, file storage and sharing with other Hushmail users. They remove your IP address from outgoing emails, so it's not in the headers. But then they use a Microsoft Exchange, so I don't know why they do that in there. Mute mail. So they're based in the Bahamas. But all emails transfer SSL, of course, and through their servers. They have non-standard SMTP ports for people behind firewalls. They don't keep any records or IP addresses over people that have received emails. And they claim they don't log anything related to the client's activity, so that even if they were asked to give up something, they don't have. Trilight's another one. They're based out of the Netherlands. Their systems are real-time encrypted, including the email. IP is never visible, and communications, of course, encrypted. BGP support up to 4096. They have a virtual keyboard you can use. They claim no logs kept, but also you don't need Java or JavaScript if you wanted to use their webmail. An email to and from account holders is automatically encrypted, so it's like an end-to-end encryption. They offer offshore SSH privacy tunnels. And then something else, they have privacy payments that, a lot more choices, so a lot more private options that we really don't have most of the time. Community-wise, they blog and post articles about privacy and anonymity, and they list their public key on their site. So, Neo Mailbox, they think Switzerland's respect for privacy is the best place to host email. IP anonymization, where they basically scrub IP and other geographical location information from your email. Again, they have alternative ports for SMTP as well. They keep email traffic logs for 7 days, but the user's IP is scrubbed before that's even saved. And they have anonymous surfing, and those logs are deleted every 10 minutes. They have two-factor auth, so you can get a hardware token. They run OpenBSD, kept up to date with the latest security patches. They do hardware accelerated SSL. And they don't require any identifiable information when you get an account. Of course, if you use a credit card, that's going to mess that up. But they also offer different ways of paying, including digital gold currencies. So to sign up for an account with them, you don't have to give them any personal data if you go that way. So those are really the ones I looked at. If you're going to look at them, I recommend, again, figuring out maybe a less traditional way to pay than before. So, I mean, we know a lot more now. We know what we're up against. We know that privacy doesn't come pre-installed. It's something we have to configure and use ourselves. So we really need to just talk about, demand it, know that it's something that we want, and express that. But we're going to have to do some of the work ourselves as well. So this is giving you some ideas on how you can better protect yourself online, especially with email. Please feel free to contact me. Follow me on Twitter at Fak3r. The slides available soon. And I want to thank BSides for letting me speak. Edward Snowden for getting the ball rolling. EFF for all they do. and SBS Creatives, which is the company that I work for that sends me on trips to come and talk to people like you. So, and thanks for listening. Any questions? Yeah.
So with your anonymous providers that you're looking at, did you bother to look at what the ciphers they're using for the SSL encryption?
No. No. And that's something I've done with my own site too. I've got a free SSL cert from start.com, but I've actually gone through and set the different ciphers so I get a, the best rating that they show that it's the best way to set it up. So it's,